Here we have the following equation. X squared minus 6x plus 8 equals 0. Let's say I want to solve this equation and I'm not very good at this factoring. Here's another way I can solve it, and this is the method of doing so by completing the square. So my goal is going to be to make the left-hand side of the equation into a perfect square, and then use square roots to solve it. All right, so how does this work? Well, the first step when I solve a problem like this is going to be to put the x squared on one side, the x on the same side. So all the terms with x's stay on one side of the equation, and all the terms that are just constants are going to move to the other side. So in this case, that means I'm going to look at this term 8 here, and I need to subtract it from both sides of the equation so that my new equation will no longer have any constants on the right-hand side. So I get x squared minus 6x equals negative 8. Then the second step is if the coefficient on x squared isn't 1, which it is in this case, I need to convert it so that the coefficient is 1. That's just to make the math a little easier in the next step, because I'm going to try to build a perfect square. So we've already taken care of that first two steps. Step 3, let's see what it says. Take half of the coefficient of x, square it, and add that to both sides. So when I do this, here's what I do. I look at the coefficient on x. In that case, the coefficient is negative 6. And I'm going to take half of it. Okay, what's that? B over 2 here is negative 3. And then I'm going to square that and add that to both sides of my equation. So I'm adding 9, since negative 3 squared is negative 3 times negative 3, which is 9. I'm going to add that to both sides of my equation. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals negative 8 plus 9. Okay, now step 4. I look at the left-hand side of the equation and I notice it now should be a perfect square. So it should be something of the form x plus r squared or x minus r squared. Notice that negative 6, half of that is negative 3, and if I square that, I get 9. So this left-hand side is one of those perfect square trinomials. So I can rewrite it as x minus 3 squared. Not sure if you have that exactly right, multiply it back out to check. And then on the right-hand side, what do I have? I have negative 8 plus 9, that's just 1. All right. Step 5, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Now when I take the square root of an expression where one side was squared, I know that there actually could have been a negative number that squared to that same thing. So when I do this root of the left-hand side of the equation equals root of the right-hand side, I always introduce a plus or minus to remind myself there are two numbers that square to something. On the left, that square root and the square cancel one another out, so we're left with x minus 3. And on the right-hand side, we get plus or minus. What's the square root of 1? Oh, that's just 1. So now, to finish solving this equation, I'm going to get rid of any other constants on the same side with the x. So I'm subtracting that other term, or in this case, to cancel a negative, I'll add 3 to both sides of the equation, and I get x equals 3 plus or minus 1. Well, what does this mean? Oh, this just means that one solution comes when I take 3 and I add it to 1, and one solution comes when I take 3 and I subtract 1. So we get x equals 4 or x equals 2. Those are the two solutions to this original equation.